Oh, uh-oh. If I'm commentating the game, I don't wanna give away things live. Um, are we are we live though? I don't know. I don't know if you can still hear me. Who's on Riptide? What's the name? Oh, we might be live. I'm a little unsure. Things are just kind of happening all around me here. But welcome everyone, whoever's tuning in for this first game that we've got before us. Just a little bit of background on this whole event. Chris reached out, very amazing person to have in the Fleshmill community, just super friendly, super excited about opening boxes, saying boom, all the good stuff. And he offered to have me jump in here and do some commentary over his crew playing some sealed. So I think it'll be pretty fun. I've only been in the hot seat for these games. I've been playing a ton of this format, but I haven't actually gotten to sit back and watch it be played. So hopefully it'll be pretty interesting to commentate over. One second, let me update things here. We've got Jess on Riptide and Ian on Arachne for the names here. Oops, Ian. Now, unfortunately, I can't speak to exactly who they are in Chris's crew, but everyone in the venue he showed me around before we got started is just having a great time. They're busting open tons and tons of product. They're opening on whatnot. They're opening to play with even as we're going to do today. So just it looks like a great time, honestly, and I'm jealous that I can't be there in person. But here we are, just gonna kick back, have some nice relaxed commentary over this sealed game here. I see Breezy. I see Breezy in the chat. Breezy, I hope you can hear me. I'm gonna actually unmute myself to make or unmute the stream to make sure I can hear myself. It might echo for 1 second. Oh, okay. You can hear me. Very nice. Very nice. We slapped this setup together in about 20 minutes. So props to Chris for really thinking on the fly. I have not had to tackle a setup quite like this. He is streaming to a browser source that I am then recapturing, putting into my own OBS, and then using a virtual webcam to stream it back to him and capturing audio separately. So I'm sure it's not the right way to do things. It can't be, but it's the way that we figured out how to do it in a short amount of time here. So at least if it's coming through, that's good news to me. But here we go. It is Arachne on the left versus Riptide on the right. Looks like Arachne is going first and opened up with a red isolate. Now, the dominate keyword on isolate is so freaking strong when you're playing Azuri. You get to come in, show nothing but that measly little base 3-2-1 power, swap it in for a hopeful 6, maybe even 7 attack, and get that dominate to really make sure damage pushes through. But for Arachne, it's not quite doing that. It's just going to trade evenly, normally 3 value per card. And with the go again that Arachne's giving him, you can swing something else. We see the hand is, I think, just one more red attack in the malign, maybe. Maybe I can't quite see color strips, but it's definitely going to be a nerve scalpel to follow up here. And interesting, he didn't take a second weapon, so I might want to let Chris know that the spider's bite is a token for our dear friend Ian on the left. He might not know. Chris did warn me that a lot of his crew is new to actually playing FaB. They open a ton of it, but even Chris himself barely has like a dozen games under his belt. So This is probably going to be... Oh, there we go. There we go. Got the spiders back. Nice. Probably going to be pretty friendly and introductory games for everybody. So the Nerve Scalpel comes in and is blocked. And Nerve Scalpel is actually a really, really great card to open up in Sealed. In Draft, I'm sure it probably... I don't know if you really pick it super highly in Draft since you just baseline get your Spider's Bites anyway. But to open it up in Sealed, like, why not run it, right? Because there are definitely a lot of reactions that can come up, whether they're attack reactions that block well, coming from the assassin classes, or if they're defense reactions that block well, coming from the rangers or even assassins. Nerve Scalpel ought to put in work when it actually lands. But for now, we're just going to see the chain end with the Malign blue. And then nothing else for our Arachne player to do. So he probably arsenals that yellow Isolate and turn over. But taking 3 cards out of a Riptide's deck is actually pretty relevant, because a Riptide deck tends to just kind of run the pile. Even if you have a really optimized Riptide deck, from what I heard on Twitter, people talking about their Riptide experiences, from what I experienced firsthand in the pre-releases as well, you do kind of just run everything you can in a Riptide deck, just because you're bound not to have too many arrows, and you want to make sure that you have the room to use your arrows aggressively, so you can hopefully fatigue out by damage. And one of the ways to make sure you have the room to play those arrows is to have just other chaff in your deck to freely block with when you just don't have the right hand. So when you run a large deck with Riptide, it could be part of Ian's game plan here to just go the fatigue route and really try to get kind of be in the forefront of fatigue by damage and get the Riptide to block really heavily. But it can be tough when Riptide has red arrows coming in super hot, like we already see this red infecting shot pumped by a yellow come to fight. So that's been coming in for 8 total. 8 total damage with a pretty devastating on hit. On hit, deal 2 damage. Well, not directly deal 2 damage. It's a blood rot, right? But that is a lot to deal with. And there's not dominate. So Ian does have all his options open as to what he wants to block with. And normally an assassin deck tends to block pretty healthily per hand. They normally have like 2-3 blocks pretty consistently, because most of the assassin cards are all 3 block base. But we see a Feisty Locals and a Virulent Touch at least as 2 blocks in the hand. So it looks like it was maybe, yeah, 2 assassin cards that block 3, a Virulent Touch and a Feisty Locals. So not that bad, honestly. If Ian wants to opt for just block 8, he can still return with that Feisty Locals. Not awful. It tends to just deal 3 damage every time, because if you block it, it goes up by 2 damage. So you can pretty easily just sneak through 3. Hey, Ethan, have you seen the Redline Riptide list? If you're talking about the one from We Make Best, yeah, I have. The Royal Riptide list. It's it's okay. Not to say I did it first, but the Riptide deck that I was playing on stream was very similar, of just trying to be Redline Cheerio base, basically. Go hard, go aggro. Adding Royal to it is definitely a novel idea, so well done for that. But that kind of like Redline Riptide was something that even the Discord people on Twitter were messing around with for a long time. But the Royal spin on it is pretty unique. So well done to We Make Best for adding that. I don't really know if an aggro Riptide deck that runs Tunic is really competitively viable. One of the things that I've run into when watching really high level players play Riptide, shout out to OKNY Podcast, for example, they've been putting out a lot of gameplay with Riptide in Classic Constructed. And one of the issues is actually that without Trench or without Driftwood Quiver, if you just get stuck in the position where you have a trap in Arsenal, your opponent can just pass, and Riptide can take no game actions, and the game just, I think, like in an official tournament setting, would get stuck in a draw type scenario. I don't know what the judge would say in terms of like having to take a game action or not. But that can be pretty frustrating. And a lot of the OKNY games have just ended in draws, because Riptide will get stuck with a trap. And if the opponent was in a losing situation, they just pass. And that's it. They call it a draw, scoop, and play the next game. And so that's like a huge problem in playing a hard aggro Riptide deck without Trench. I don't know what happens when you actually do that in paper, but it's been pretty disappointing to see, honestly. But on the other side here, speaking of Riptide, they're coming strong with a really, really great lead-in on this turn. A red Premeditate. That card's Arsenal Clause doesn't matter when you're Riptide. and you get to just load things for free. One of the best parts of this ability. The fact that traps automatically deal damage when they trigger, really great for closing the late game. But just the fact that you get around having to pay to load with a bow, really, really strong effect. And even in this case, right, it's not even about loading an arrow. It's about getting the premeditate clause off where this next attack, Humble, is coming out of Arsenal. Once again for 8. Once again for 8. So these are 3-card 8s coming out of the Riptide, which you might compare to Classic Constructed and say, kind of a bad rate. But in reality, especially for how this limited set is, I guess, like working as of now, it seems like, knock like 1 or 2 damage values off of what you would compare those hands to CC, and you're probably living in like that kind of world for this limited format. So like a 3-card, 12 is what you're looking to do in CC, right? But then you look at this format and a 3-card 10 is like if everything was a red. And we already see this is a yellow Humble and also floating 1 pitch. So a little bit of an inefficient play to end up still dealing 8 off 3. But that doesn't feel awful for this kind of format. It doesn't feel awful. It's kind of where we're at. A lot of cards also block for 2. The average block in this set is lower. So when you can even throw something as strong as, playing 2 cards aggressively for 8 damage, blocking with 3 cards, that is part of the game plan of this fatigue by damage strategy that so many decks are pulling off in this format, where if you just throw enough damage and make your opponent waste more cards on defense than they're preserving in deck because of pitching, compared to you as the attacker actually having pitch, then you will just deck them out that way. It's way more engaging, way more interesting to fatigue out that way than just fatigue out defensively, where you just have a deck that can block, 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 and run the opponent out of ways to really close. So it's an interesting spin on the format because I think a lot of people thought that, oh, it's, there's Rangers in this format. So if you just block forever, you'll win because they don't have a weapon. But because of the low block value, things have really been switched up, which is cool to see. Justin says that Riptide looks pretty fun. I watch your stream. You're not too happy in it, but I do enjoy watching you play. Yeah, unfortunately, the 2 Riptide streams that I've done have been like kind of the worst work days or just the busiest days that I've had to juggle, which like streaming in the middle of the day is just tough anyway. I'm basically giving up on my lunch break and taking a little bit extra time to stream, which is fun. I mean, I really enjoy playing Flesh and Blood and I enjoy streaming, but to play new decks is really tough in the middle of a day like that. And every time I've tried to play Riptide, it's not just like the pressure of playing a new deck in the middle of a workday. There's something else, some ancillary thing like happening in the background of my life that has made those days not so great. Like this most recent Riptide stream, I was just so burned from the weekend, but still tried to play. And then the first stream that for whatever reason has like 12,000 views, I was just, oh god, just not having it. Almost like on tilt from some loss, and I was just throwing myself trying to get a win, and took the stream way too long. So yeah, neither Riptide day has been amazing, but I promise you the deck's good. I do well with it off stream. Um, I mostly not to like blame much of it on streaming. I don't think streaming is that distracting. It's distracting to stream in the middle of a workday. So take that out of the equation, and all of a sudden, gameplay gets a lot better. So only issue with that has been when I stream after hours. Um, the time zone is just weird for a lot of parts of the world. So that's why we stick to when we do. But we see a turn there where Isolate came in with that Dominate. It was blocked out by Frailty Trap, and that was it. Ian decided not to react with Razor's Edge. Makes sense. The Frailty Trap was over blocking, actually. So if you Razor's Edge there, you waste 1 damage point of value, and it is a game of inches. So makes a lot of sense to just hold back on that. It'll get full value at some other point in the game. Now we see 6.9, which I imagine is just 6 in this scenario. The 0.9, not quite in effect right now. But this is an aggressive use of Toxic Tips, which, it's really cool to see these equipment pieces that, yes, have Blade Break 1, but also have aggressively, uh, like, worded effects, right? Where you can break it and add this disruptive effect to your turn cycle. One of the cool ways to start to weigh when to use those pieces is just knowing that against Rangers specifically, holding back a battle worn piece is, or not a battle worn, a just blocking piece at all is really important because of Widowmaker. You need to make sure that you have your blocking equipment so that you can block a single card from hand and one of your equipment pieces to negate a Widowmaker's full pump value. But against other heroes, that's not necessarily the case, and you can start to look to use those cards aggressively to force an extra blocking card out of hand, to get a hit effect through, to push damage, whatever, whatever. And in this scenario, we saw Jess use the toxic tips to basically make that otherwise vanilla skybound shot, I believe it's called, actually have an on hit. So it demanded 3 cards all of a sudden out of hand from Ian. And then Ian's turn looking pretty weak. It's a single brush off in hand, and we know he's got a Razor's Edge in Arsenal, which is not playable here. I don't know what color that brush off is, but because he's holding it so long, it makes me think it's maybe a red. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just swing weapon, right? That's just the turn. Let me actually share this stream on Twitter as well. Give me 1 second. Hanging out with FaB Unsealed. Commentating over their sealed gameplay live. Drop the link. Normally when you share links on Facebook, or not on Facebook, on Twitter, they basically like ghost the post. They don't spread it around, but it is what it is. Let's put it out there. All right. So once again, a turn cycle that really favored Jess. Even though damage has not quite landed, all the tempo is in Jess's court. And we see just another hand that's actually going to go pretty wide and throw a non-hit effect, demanding cards out of hand from Ian. Ian tossed 2 blocks in front of it. And this is part of that discussion of fatigue by damage, right? It is not great value to throw 2 cards for just 4 blocking value. When you start to look at the fact that, a single defense reaction, single card could be worth 4 in and all by itself. And now you're actually trading 2 cards out of deck to block 4. This is how that fatigue by a damage scenario comes in, where if the attacker is spending less cards to make you block with more cards, then all of a sudden you run out of cards faster in your deck. And that's the beauty of how pitch stacks then line up, right? Those cards that the aggressor was pitching, even if they are weaker, even if they're the blue and yellows, if your opponent's deck is truly running out, then it doesn't matter. That's damage that's going to land, regardless of the color. So it's really cool how that's played out in this set. I absolutely love playing sealed so far. So in the comments, let me know, how did everyone do in pre-releases? Because this is basically, the pre-release format. This is sealed that they're playing on stream here. So I don't know if we'll really see sealed come back for Uprise or for Outsiders. I don't think the skirmish season has sealed skirmishes. I could be wrong. I definitely could be wrong on that. So don't quote me. But I do love me a good sealed format. I went to the Calling Dallas. I think it was right, like early 20. No, not early. I don't know. Sometime like 2 years ago. And it was Tales of Aria. Wait, so was it 2 years ago? Like a year and a half ago. It was a Tales of Aria sealed Swiss rounds into draft top 32, top 8, or top 64, top 32, top 8, I think. That was so much fun. I'd never played sealed. I'd never played draft. Nothing. Never played limited before in a card game because I came from Pokemon. And pre-releases for Pokemon don't really count for limited experiences. And that was just so much fun. Being able to show up with no decks, just sleeves, and a hankering for gameplay. And to have an entire calling run with just the packs you open was really fun. Really enjoyed that. And I hope we see that again. But so far, none of the callings have actually been announced fully in limited format. We just know that it's going to be part of the draft in the Pro Tour coming up. It'll be Outsiders Draft. So finally, we see Ian being able to play out some cards aggressively here. Those cut down to size and Scout the Peripheries were cards he blocked with on the previous turn, so they got to go. But now we see Backstab coming in. Backstab, 3 go again on the table. I forget the effect of that one. I think that's the one where like defense reactions can't be played to the chain link, I'm pretty sure. Something like that. The one that is pretty good, once again, in Azuri to swap into CNC, because they have no window to play defense reactions. But here we go. Now it's just Backstab and pumped by a red Razor's Edge. So not necessarily making use of that go again, right? Because that Death Touch can't be played from hand. That's just going to go in Arsenal, but still pushed 6 damage here, and this could be something that Jess wasn't really expecting. Jess might have wanted to, okay, backstab, no real hit effect, but it has go again from Arachne, so I'm gonna wait till the next attack. I'm gonna wait till the next attack and block then. And if that's part of what Jess was planning on that turn cycle, that was completely thwarted. And instead we see an awkward pitch here, 2 reds going into this Peace of Mind to block out 4 of it, taking 2. Now, no on hit effect. This was just damage. And Peace of Mind, when you pitch it that way, starts to look like a pretty bad card. But I promise you, it is an amazing card. Peace of Mind, even the yellow, I found to overperform in sealed because it basically is trading. Um, you're still blocking 1 card for 3. The Ponder token is going to regenerate the card that you actually pitched for the effect. So if you can get extra value out of the fact that you pitched like a blue to use a Seeker's equipment or something, then that card starts to feel really, really, really good. Really underestimated the power of a Ponder token, honestly, but it is an amazing, amazing card, especially because you as the turn player gets to stack how Ponder and Inertia resolves. So if you have an Inertia token that's threatening to put your arsenal to the bottom, well, you can let Inertia resolve first and then let Ponder resolve, get a new card, make sure that sticks in arsenal. Really cool interaction. Love all the tokens. Scout the periphery, took a peek. Wow. Okay. So even with a very awkward pitch hand coming from Jess, pitching the 2 reds, Peace of Mind, this is a 2-card hand that you really can't scoff at. This is Scout the Periphery, buffing that Virulent Touch to come in for 7 total. Now, this one's interesting. It's not a true on hit effect or anything. It's kind of an inverse swing big, right? And we all love swing big. Card's incredible. But this one says whenever you block with a card, or block with an action card, I think it might say, or block with a card from hand, then you get a Blood Rot Pox if you do. So it can really punish late game situations where, let's say, you're at like 1 life, right? And then your opponent swings at you with a red Virulent Touch. Well, that comes in at a natural breakpoint of 4. You have to block it because you're at 1. But now when you block it, you're going to get a Blood Rot, and you have to contend with clearing the Blood Rot. And you also have to find a way to not just lose the game by doing nothing and giving your opponent a full hand again. So that card can get really, really tough to play around as the game goes on. Now, in the early parts of a game, you have a lot more leeway to just say, okay, I'll take the damage. Let's not worry about Blood Rot. But that really is a great rate card. So if you're eating all that damage, that can punish you in different ways as well. And we see Ian leads with a Sedate. I think Sedate is the one that when it hits, create inertia. I'm pretty sure because Wither is the frailty one, right? Yeah, so this is the one where when it hits, it creates an inertia. Comes in at a base 3, which at first doesn't seem great, but if Jess wants to block a full 3, that tends to mean it's a real attack that he's having to commit on defense. It's an arrow that blocks 3, or it's a trap. If it's a trap, amazing, right? But most of the other cards in a ranger deck are going to just block 2. So, ooh, looks like we've got. Okay, I was interested in that. I'm pretty sure that's a blue plunge, so it should be. Yeah, let's let that hit effect resolve. Inertia token on the table. There we go. Now we pitch the blue. I would think for like a nerve scalpel, but Ian could be going for the play where instead he's going to threadbare at the end of turn and clear the blood rot with the 2 floating right now, plus the threadbare. That could make sense because in a way, yes, it trades equipment, but it saves 2 damage. Whereas if you just swung nerve scalpel, then that's only 1 damage as compared to saving 2. So I could see that. I could see that. But either way, I think that's a red death touch. And red death touch, that is a card. That is a very real card. It's amazing. And I'm not gonna say all of sealed comes down to how many red death touches you open. It's a lot more than that. But that card, the fact that you can play it in 4 of the heroes in this set is incredible. Just opening that sucker doesn't just mean okay, Azuri's a potential hero you can go right, swap in a death touch. Well, Riptide can also immediately load it. Also, Arachne can go really wide with the turn. So if you set up death touch, go wide into death touch. That's pretty amazing too. Azalea is probably the one where it feels the weakest. In fact, I don't think you really run it, but in theory, you could Azalea swap it into Arsenal on top of deck. So that is at least an interaction that could see play. But here we go. Death touch, Threadbare. Well done, Ian. This is a play that I pulled off, honestly, like quite a bit, I feel. Just Threadbare at the end of a turn to help clear Blood Rot honestly came up a lot. Came up a lot. So well done. Now we see the damage trade in a situation where Ian is likely to actually have a turn again because Jess played very defensive on that turn. Got a 2-card hand, likely able to throw just that arrow off that card in hand to pitch. Yep. Okay, another red virulent. Very, very nice to have that coming in the pitch stack in that late game. Both players have actually been blocking quite a bit here. But this is this is a point in the game where yes, frailty is bad if if Ian was planning on swinging daggers, but it doesn't immediately impact any damage that was potentially coming out of Arsenal because he just doesn't have one right now. So if Ian sees this hand and thinks, okay, I'm going to actually scale it fine without daggers, this could be a pretty big opening because the damage trade only went from 14 down to 8 here. So they're within 3 life of each other. That blood rot is actually cleared. It's not on the table. So I should clear that in a second. But that ponder token, no joke, is getting Riptide back into this card trade advantage. Now we see Ian take a look at his hand. I feel like he kept it because he figured it could go wide, but I'm seeing at least 2 blues, I think, which will not convert to the spider's bites very well. So this is interesting. We'll see how he takes it. If all Ian does is throw in the cut down to size. Okay. Oh, so that's a red plunge. Okay. Okay. This makes sense, actually. Well done. Well done. Red plunge into red cut to size is going to be a pretty strong turn. And then arseling short and sharp, especially if Jess opts to take a lot of this damage here, is going to be pretty threatening. So I can see this, actually. I thought that plunge was a blue. But I take it back. I take it back. This is a good line. Look at that. Letting that hit effect through. So if Ian wanted, he could trade a potential yellow in hand for still a dagger swing. I don't think you do it. That short and sharp in Arsenal is going to feel really, really good if it helps close the game. We see Jess block from hand. Not necessarily in need of blocking the full 6. If you block with at least 1 card, then cut down to size has no more hit effect, right? It just goes to being a vanilla 6 attack. Cut down to size saying if your hand has at least 4 cards and this hits, you got to discard 1. And what's cool about that is if you actually pummel it, you can layer the effects since you're the turn player to be optimal for you, right? You can let the cut down to size trigger happen first and then the pummel trigger happen. So I think there is room for that card to really punish aggro. I'm pretty excited for it. It doesn't block 3, so it doesn't just slot in everywhere. But I think it will see play. But speaking of seeing play, oh my gosh, you definitely love playing out red come to fights. I mean, honestly, you love just doing anything with that card. Card's incredible. In this format, block 3, being able to pump these arrow attacks, being able to trigger the Riptide effect in this scenario as well. Now making that Widowmaker come in for base 7. Well, not necessarily base 7. There's the conditional 7 where it is 4 base, and then if it's not blocked with 2 cards, which also counts equipment, so thank you, Jess, actually pointing that out, it will lose the 3 pump, but the come to fights are adding an extra 6 on top. So at minimum 10 damage thrown here, potentially 13. But I don't think there's any world where you get away with just blocking with 1 card, right? That just doesn't happen. So there we see it blocked out. I believe that was the full hand given. Interesting. I think that's what was denoted there, even though the cards were turned different ways. Yeah, looks like Ian just took the full block and is passing it over. Full block and passing it over. This gives Jess a lot of room once again. A lot of room once again. I think Ian probably could have gotten away with maybe even like 1 or like a 2-card hand back into that. I think was fine. If you block at least 2 there, then you probably take 4 to 5 damage, which is fine. And then you still get to come through with, oh my gosh, look at that. With this hand drawn, there's actually just no cards left in deck. Oh yeah, so Ian definitely had to make the call of taking some damage there to try to close this game. Because that fatigue by damage, like I mentioned in the beginning of the game, with how Riptide was just taking so many cards, taking 3-card hands, like to block, 2 cards committed, that kind of thing, has really just sapped the power out of Ian's deck. He's just out. He has 3 cards in hand. The short and sharp in Arsenal. And then the cards in hand right now, I believe, are a red plunge maybe, and then a blue brush off, blue bleed out. So that is not the kind of hand to construe a win with this 3 card plus arsenal return. It's just not going to happen. So we will see some tough decisions being made. Ian forced to eat damage or die, but eventually dead anyway to just no game actions being able to be taken. This is a way that I think a lot of games really play out unexpectedly. A lot of people thought that, okay, just block out Rangers and you'll be fine. Block out Rangers, they'll run out of attacks and then they can't win. And then Arachne with daggers is just going to fatigue them. But the reality really is that fatigue by damage comes up big. And we see that right now. Jess is a whole maybe like 8 cards or so left in deck ahead of Ian. So now Jess is the one who has all the room in the world. Where if this hand doesn't operate, he's got a lot of room to just say, okay, well, I'll just block then. Because I've got at least that red Virulent Touch upcoming. We saw that pitch, really strong card. That's definitely going to be a tough one to deal with in any case, especially compounded by the fact that there's only 2 cards left in hand from Ian. Ian, deliberating, trying to decide with these 2 blues in hand, where are the lines for damage? Now, funny enough, there is a world where Jess just doesn't respect short and sharp and says, eat, what would it be? Like, eat the first dagger swing, eat the second dagger swing. That would put him to 3, and then try to short and sharp on top of it. But there is the Seeker's Hood and Seeker's Chest. So actually, there isn't a world where that could ever work. Even if Jess said no blocks, there is no punish. There is no punish. That was also kind of funny. Jess making the game actions for Ian, pulling up Spider's Bite, saying, you attack. You attack, I block. Come on, you attack, I block. This is actually very reminiscent of that first turn scenario where Ian opted not to Razor's Edge, I think it's called, because of an overblock situation. But now he's actually going to short and sharp on top, even though this is once again not fully effective because there is a bit of an overblock on that Humble. So only 2 damage coming through, even though that was a red short and sharp. I think it's just Ian taking whatever game actions he can before he has to offer the handshake here. Because now all cards are on the table, everything's face up. There's nothing else that Ian can really do, sneakily enough. As an assassin, didn't track down Riptide for long enough, didn't take notes, didn't scout out all the different locales Riptide visits, took a list of his allergies. Anything assassins do, I don't know. Just didn't come to fruition. Okay, and opting not to swing the Nerf Scalpel. Now, in these kind of situations, there is a habit to just say Arsenal, right? If you have a card in hand, Arsenal. But if you're in a situation where you would otherwise be drawing up to exactly 4 or especially less than 4, just don't Arsenal, right? There's no reason to. You'd rather have that card in hand because you'll never get a true 5-card play with Arsenal, and that's really what Arsenal's about. So just don't. And so we at least saw that come out of Ian here, deciding to keep that card in hand. It definitely should have turned into a Nerf Scalpel swing, though, to be fair. All right, now everything's going in crazy locations. We got Spider's Bite in the graveyard. We've got Upside Down Bleed Out in the chest slot. And we've got a Brush Off in hand for like the 4th time this game. It's in the pitch zone for a weapon attack that never made it to chain. That's the red Virulent Touch that we saw pitched. So Ian must like a different play line here. Just a way to get this out of Arsenal. I forget the name, like Infectious Host, I think. But either way, there was only 1 card left, and it was a blue Brush Off, which in that scenario is never useful. So that's going to be it. That's going to be it for game 1 here. Jess taking down Ian. And I think we're going to probably have like 3 or so matches to play out. So please stick around. We don't have a concrete plan on how to run these things. But that was game 1. That was game 1. Let me check one thing here. Okay, and actually, well done. I don't even have to do anything else. They're just jumping right into game number 2. So let me fix the names here. Let me ask Chris real quick who's where. Dell on Arachne. Oh, nice. Dell from Peranine versus Vera from Peranine on Azuri. Not like this. We're going to have some team kills in the house. Team kills in the house. This is both halves of Peranine on the table. This will be awesome. Great people. Met them at Worlds. Got into a bit of a heated discussion too about Clash, but I appreciated it. Honestly, I like the feedback. All right, we've got Vera on the... Is it Vera or Vera? I'm going to say Vera, I think. Sounds more correct. Vera on Azuri. A V and a Z and a U all on the left side of the screen versus Dell. Nice. Okay, and here we go. Game number 2. So we at least see a little bit of a shakeup here. It is Assassin v Assassin. Different borders, though. We got Azuri hailing from Mysteria, of course. Arachne, Solitary Confinement. Hailing from some prison cell somewhere in the pits. That was the initial roll getting us started. That die looks so good on camera. Very large. Rolling a 3, rolling a 4. So Dell's going to pick. I believe he gestured to himself to go first there, which actually I do prefer going first in this format. I think because fatigue by damage is such a real win con for so many decks, if you can go first and just get cards out of deck from the opponent, that can feel useful. I mean, you also want to leak some damage through. You don't want to just take cards and that's it. You want to hopefully take... I see it as a win if you take like 3 cards from hand and set up Arsenal. That feels pretty good because you likely only spent 1 real card to do that as an assassin. You swing like dagger, dagger, real card, Arsenal. That should feel good if it took 3 cards. So yeah, I think... I don't want to say like it's categorically better to go first, but I definitely went first every time I won the die roll. And it felt really good. And I did win 2 pre-releases. So I at least know like a tiny bit of what I'm saying. Dell showing us so clearly what is in his hand. I love this. Why can't everyone play this way? This is great. Virulent Touch going in Arsenal with a hand that looks really hot. Really hot. There's not just good art in the hand. There's good art on the hands on both these players. Red Destructive Deliberation is an incredible card, by the way. Very underrated. I think at first it doesn't seem like it does much because it's just 2 cost for 5 that blocks 2. What's so great about that? But you got to realize it replaces itself, right? When it comes through and hits and makes that ponder, then how do you even value what it really did? Was it like a 1 card 5 then? A 1 card 5? That's crazy. That's like a Gorg Tome Ravenous Rabble. That's like a E-Strike draw card. You know, that's amazing value. So yes, it does have to hit for that to come through, but in this format, blocking 5 can be pretty demanding. Be pretty tough for someone to craft out of a hand that they actually want to get stuff done with. So you see Vera starting with these Spider's Bites, both of them, sliding on in. But no follow-up. Interesting. The end of turn there just goes to Arsenal, hold 1, draw 3. And I actually didn't quite see what the Arsenal was. I just kind of zoned out on that. My bad. That would have told us a lot more as to why that turn played out that way. But the card held was a blue Seek Horizon, I do believe. So, oh, yellow Seek Horizon. Okay, I think it was a yellow Seek Horizon. Well, it probably wouldn't have hurt to just throw that out at the end of the 2 Spider's Bites. You don't give it go again, of course. It just comes in for 3. But there were these Spider's Bite debuffs in play. So it could have probably gotten some damage through. But we see Vera choosing to play defensive early on, saying, I'm not going to let Spider's Bite hit. We're not going to let that debuff go through. I was trying to think of what is a word for when a spider bites you? It is just a bite, right? Like you don't say like a spider nicked me. Spider's Bite nicked Vera. No. um, Instead, the turn goes a different route. The first Spider's Bite didn't connect into an isolate spike with Blood Rot. That landed, going to give the Blood Rot over to Vera. Very nasty card to deal with. You don't like getting spiked with pretty much any of them. Blood Rot is just the most damage that tends to come through in that react slot. Really, really juicy. And then a Virulent Touch that we saw Dell Arsenal in that first turn really put a lot of pressure out of this hand, because this hand wasn't even a full 5 cards. He's going to get to Arsenal. Going to get to Arsenal. And still, we saw Isolate come through, Spike with the on hit, and then Virulent. If Vera decides to take it, I mean, it's kind of a lose-lose here. You're either taking 4 or you're deciding to go ahead and block a card, but ending up with double Blood Rot. This is a weird position to be in, because a lot of times in this format, hands don't necessarily do a lot if you didn't get the choices to block like you wanted. Like, a lot of cards should just get blocked with hand by hand. It's very mid-range format where not every card can really get played aggressively hand by hand. So to have the chain end with a Virulent Touch here, really awkward, because if Vera wanted to block, wanted to throw another card in, there weren't many opportunities to. That Isolate was dominated. So if that changed the plan on how she wanted the turn to play out, the Virulent Touch does punish this additional block. So with a Seek Horizon, I can't see the other cards. With a Seek Horizon, I think a Blue Hurl and a Malign. She's going to have to try to construct a turn here that can try to flip this game, because Dell, once again, showing absolute juice. Look at that. A yellow Virulent Touch, a yellow Rabble, a red Spike, and a red Looking for Scrap, plus that Destructive Deliberation in Arsenal. So his hand lets him play a lot of different ways here. Those yellows actually line up to make lines like just pitching for Spider's Bite, pitching a Destructive, probably a fine play. Also able to go wide if there is a 1 cost in Arsenal, which I'm actually not sure about. There tends to likely be one in an Assassin player's graveyard, because the blues just block. The blues attack for 1, right? So Looking for Scrap normally has a target. So now we see Spider's Bite getting blocked, Seek Horizon just coming in for 4. Just coming in for 4. So Vera's going to make the best of using this hand to at least pay for Blood Rot, is most likely what's happening here. Because that Seek Horizon without Go again, and without a way to really react on it, you can't short and sharp a Seek Horizon. That extra card in hand would just be straight inefficient if not used to pay for Blood Rot. But we can't quite see the color of that card. I think it's a blue, maybe. I don't know. The little pip in the top left of the card makes me think it's actually a red, but I could be totally wrong. The camera's great. Shout out to Chris. The setup's really great, but I still can't see the color strip. Always an issue. Okay, yeah, I think it was a blue. It was a blue. First instinct correct. So the way damage is traded so far obviously favors Dell. Obviously favors Dell. I think it really came down to Vera going second just didn't have a high pressure hand. And that's really, really lackluster, right? When you're going second, you want to be the first player to start demanding answers. I'm going to throw damage, and I'm either going to make it land or you give me a real card, because there is no drawing up happening, right? Once the second player is getting to be aggressive. But without Vera's ability to do anything other than the Spider's Bites, the game has just not really given her room to freely have some aggression going on her side of the field. She's going to have to fight for it. She's going to have to fight for it. Some additional coaching going on. I wonder whose hand that is. Everyone has such wonderfully tatted hands. I don't have any hand tats, just wrist tats. It might change, actually. I'm going to Tijuana in a couple weeks, thinking about getting another tattoo. Maybe a Levia back tattoo. Wouldn't that be cool? Maybe when Dusk Till Dawn comes out. Dusk Till Dawn. All right, so Vera going to scout the periphery blue, I believe. Blue, so it's only a pump 1 there into a Prowl. Now, we really haven't seen Azuri get her bread and butter combo going where you threaten the swap. You might Spider's Bite first, you might do a little go again first into this, oh, little old stealth attack. Who knows what it could be, right? Just a stealth attack. Is the card in hand a swap? Is it something you want to arsenal anyway? And you just make your opponent make the call as to either say no blocks and get punished by the potential swap in, or block 6. And then the Azuri says, okay, I'll just arsenal. And that's that. I love the mind games with Azuri. I'm really trying to make her work for Classic Constructed. I think she's going to play very similarly to kind of like a Dorinthia, right? But a Dorinthia that never just steals the game away. Because Dorinthia can have those hands where, okay, well, look at that. The Dawn Blades just popped off. It's just nuts. The one thing that leaves you open to is the potential to, draw a hand that just like has no go again or something. And then your opponent just blocks tall and it resets the game plan. With Azuri, you at least can start stronger because you're not trying to build the Dawnblade counters. You just be building into these potentially very disruptive swaps. But then you don't ever get the kind of math break turns like a Dorinthia would, where when a Dorinthia full keeps and has a counter on Dawnblade, that thing's going to be swinging in for not just base 3. It's going to be swinging in for like 4 plus whatever pumps. Again, get another counter by the end of the turn. An Azuri that you let keep a full hand probably doesn't really threaten more than 6 with just some mind games about it. Like, oh, it's a 6, but what 6 is it? I haven't really seen an Azuri deck that has successfully been built around having like pummels on top of the 6 attacks. I think that just ends up being a little clunky, especially since you're not paying for the 6 cost for the most part, but then pummel is very demanding on your pitch. So the hands start to just demand a lot if you're trying to have a stealth card swap into a 6 and pay for a pummel. That's just a lot to ask. I haven't seen a Azuri deck quite like that. But there is a world where an Azuri that keeps 5-card hands is just constantly threatening a 6-hit effect and a pummel every turn. That's a dangerous world. I'm glad we don't live in it. Vera, tough choices again. Just on the back foot. Every time she's been able to keep a card, it's really only converted into Spider's Bites. So now, with 3 cards in hand, she's looking to make some kind of push out of this. Even if it's a defensive push, just like a hurl into Spider's Bite, into setting that Peace of Mind in Arsenal, that could maybe buy you into a decent position. Like the Peace of Mind can do a lot to just be a high value card where you're getting that ponder off. So it's really just 1 card, 3 block at instant speed type of deal. But Dell, look at that hand. That hand is very, very aggressive. I think it's a little resource light. Oh, okay. Well, it is definitely resource light when he blocks with a blue Ravenous Rebel, right? So this must mean the card in Arsenal. I know he showed it. I just missed it. The card in Arsenal is likely something that doesn't require a lot of pitch there. Yeah, because this was a interesting choice to make when your hand is something that actually wants pitch, right? If you're looking to come to fight, keeping that Ravenous Rabble blue would have let you come to fight Spider's Bite into the Isolate in Arsenal. So not having the pitch is going to feel pretty rough. This is just two reds going in for 1 damage. So talk about bad rates. This is how Vera could find just a natural avenue back into the tempo seat because Dell just doesn't have a turn going here. When you're behind, sometimes all you have to do is hope and pray that your opponent just doesn't have a lot. Just hope your opponent bricks. Hope your opponent draws like, triple Art of War Ibophidia, which is a hand I've drawn as Levia. Like, what do you do? So Vera got a bit of an opening there. Can she convert? This hand is that a Gore Belching as her leftmost card? No, it's something funky. Is it Amnesia? I can't quite tell. It's an art I haven't seen much of, that's for sure. And it looks generic. Oh, I hope it's a Gore Belching. Gore Belching was my spoiler card after all. And the only time I've really seen it used was when it was abused in this disgusting Arcane Icelander deck in Blitz, where it's just normal Arcane Icelander, and then you run 1 Gore Belching and 1 Rouse. And so randomly Icelander just gets a 7 value card, right? They just play Gore Belching and it's 7 every time because it banishes Rouse. That's just crazy. It's disgusting. I hate it. but it's very good. It's very good in that exact scenario. Let's see if it's good here, because it definitely is a gore belching in hand. That's a gore belching with a stealth attack, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's a yellow wither, I think. So the unfortunate part is, oh, you know what? How have I not noticed this? That's a flick knives. That's literally a flick knife. That's a flick knives on Vera's side of the table. Whoa! I don't know how I missed that. I think her, I don't know, her hand was just in the way, or I just missed it or something. That's crazy. That's crazy. Her deck actually has amazing reach. Amazing reach. Swapping in a gore belching for 7 here, really strong. On top of the ability to, at some point, just throw those spider's bites for 2 damage. I think there's only, yeah, there are 2 Seeker's pieces on Dell's side of the table. So he's not just straight dead to double flick knives, which is too bad. That would have been awesome. We get a game that flick knives just ends on the spot. Oh, it'd be so cool. Wow, I straight missed it though. Flick knives on the table. And a gore belching on the table. This is awesome. Well done, Vera. Well done. Now there isn't any attack reaction in Arsenal that could actually affect the gore belching, so this is going to be everything Dell has to contend with is on the table right here, right now. I think he has one defense reaction he's thinking about here, the inertia trap. And then I guess the option, of course, for those Seekers pieces, which he will not do. So still taking 4 damage here. Not bad. The max damage an Azuri swap can come in for in this format is 7. It's either going to be the gore belching or the sneak attack. Of course, I prefer seeing the gore belching, spoiler card and all. Very cool. Very cool. When you swap it in, you do not have to actually pay the cost. So that's why it always comes in for the base 7 there. Really neat, because in theory, in Azuri, you also have the opportunity for it to come in for 6 if it banishes one of your blue stealth cards. So there is a world where gore belching is just high enough value to always play in Azuri. I don't quite know if it makes its way into constructed decks, but if you open it in sealed or have it in a draft pool, then I think you do. Yeah, you definitely just play it. You're coming in for 7 in this format, really strong. So now tough choices, tough choices. That Spider's Bite did connect. So this is not a clean block. 3 on 3. That is now down to 2. I don't know if they missed it, though. I think they did miss it. Because that line is definitely red. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Dell got it. Yeah, because the Spider's Bite debuff being eaten on the yellow. Now infect threatening base 2, so it's lethal already. However, with the reactions that can come out of an assassin, I mean, there are 2 real reactions to have to juggle here. There's the Razor's Edge, which we see right now, and there's the Short and Sharp. Both of those would be live on a yellow attack infect there. So this one does connect. It's going to deal just 1 damage because 3 was blocked of the 4, but even dealing 1 is good enough for the Blood Rot to go through. Actually, that's a little unfortunate. I think Vera just doesn't catch it here, but she did pitch a blue for Peace of Mind, so she was able to Seeker's legging. She was able to actually Seekers with the 1 floating on that Peace of Mind to make sure that the pump up to 4 there just doesn't hit. And then she wouldn't have to worry about the Blood Rot either. So big misplay coming up there, unfortunately. So she just goes for the turn pass. And Dell, given another hand that, I mean, it's likely to go wide, right? Arachne is just built to be able to go wide. Gives the first stealth attack go again. Even if it's a small stealth attack, when your opponent's at 1, all you have to do is show the 1 damage at least to demand something out of Vera. And that's pretty much what gets let off with here. A yellow malign, just 2 damage, but it has go again. So the turn doesn't stop there. And this is another tough spot because Vera can't play around every single attack reaction. If she tries to just overblock on everything, she will lose to the potential 3rd swing of the turn, right? You can't just block 2 cards, 2 cards. You die to the third swing. So she's got to just say, I hope there's no defense reaction, and we'll just block the base 2, which she did get away with. There was no attack reaction. But everything is still a must block. And you don't even get a free pass with your flick knives into these Spider's Bites. Spider's Bites have piercing 1. So you can't even trade your beautiful Blade Break 1 equipment piece there for it to get you by one of these Spider's Bites. Just doesn't work. Doesn't work. Interesting because Dell actually had Hurl in hand. So Hurl would have just ended the game. Well, no, it wouldn't end the game. It would make Vera play into Seeker's leggings. So I guess he just wasn't ready to do that yet. He wants to make sure that the leggings are gone so that when he hurls, it's guaranteed death. Thank you, Dell. Thank you. Red Feisty Locals. That looks like a interesting hand. Red Death Touch, red Wreck Havoc, yellow Scout the Periphery. So his hand actually is looking to block down 2 cards here pretty much every time. Pretty much every time. You likely want to just block with like probably the Wreck Havoc and the Inertia Trap or Blood Rot Trap, whatever it is. And then your turn gets to be Spider's Bite into Feisty Locals. Feisty Locals is an incredible card in these kind of situations because that base 3, you can't just take anymore. You have to actually throw cards in front of it, and then it gets +2. So a 0 cost 5 comes through in a position like this from Red Feisty Locals. So we'll see if Dell actually blocks that way. But once again, Vera really not showing much damage either. So if he wants to keep this hand to inefficiently just pay for an extra Spider's Bite or something, I'm sure that's fine. That is probably just okay because Vera's at that 1 life. So even if Dell's just throwing 2 reds to pay for 1 damage from Spider's Bite, that's good enough in a position like this because his turn could be Spiders into Feisty. And there is a world where that actually deals enough damage. No way. The kill on the Blood Rot. Vera went for it for the cheeky, okay, you say no blocks. I'll short and sharp you. But the short and sharp getting stopped by Blood Rot. The Blood Rot trap actually going to trigger because an attack react was played. I believe is what it's looking for. I believe. So there is no way around the Blood Rot resolving if that's what the trigger was. I could just straight be wrong. Let me look it up, actually. Nope. Okay, she took the damage. Yeah, so that must have been a Blood Rot resolution. I really think that one is tied to an attack react being played. But Peranine, well done. You are both the winners. You both got to show off not only Vera's beautiful flick knives, but more so impressed with that gore belching. Well done. Well done. And then Dell, just amazing piloting. Pulling through with a deck that looks really strong. I'm actually surprised that he didn't opt for Azuri. I think with that kind of pool, you've got at least, I saw about like 3 good swap targets. That's when you start to think about Azuri. Because Azuri can do a lot with those same stealth cards. They still block the same base 3, whether you're Arachne or not, which is very huge in this format. But that ability to cheat through extra damage with those red 2-cost 6s, so strong in a format that is really a game of inches, right? All about closing out that lethal. Not all these heroes even start at 20. That's another upside of potentially playing Azuri in that pool instead. You just get 1 more life. Why not? Cool stuff. Let's see. Who do we have next? Third match is going to be Dell versus Jess. So we've got the winners. The winners of the last 2 games. Dell won round 2. Jess won round 1. It's going to be Riptide versus Arachne again. That Riptide deck looked really strong. It definitely looked pretty potent. They just seem to be a lot of playables, a lot of red arrows. The double red come to fight as well. Absolutely terrifying. So this could be a battle of some pretty high-powered decks for a format like Sealed. Definitely both decks will be able to block well as well. but Arachne is the one that's looking to punish that. If Arachne can get enough room to swing in and just make those spiders' bites tick down the opponent's life or hand, just make things annoying. That's not something Riptide really gets to do. They don't have that easy throw of resources into a go-gun weapon like Arachne, but I don't think the damage is really going to be anything Riptide lacks. This deck looked very powerful. And both heroes starting at 19. No clean 20s in front of us this game. So it is important to note they both are rocking full sets of equipment, 4 and 4. That's something that across the 3 pre-releases I played, I only was able to get 4 equipment once. And it really felt like a big deal. Big deal. Equipment has a lot of uses in this format. Like I mentioned with the Blade Break pieces, it's very strong into Widowmaker specifically. But even the Seeker's pieces, very strong in denying those very just awkward points in the game where you can't play around everything. But if your opponent does have the attack rack or a situation like that, then having Seekers to just go on top and at least save you when you can't play around everything, very strong. Not to mention how cleanly it ends up lining up cost curve wise with like a Peace of Mind. That's also pretty huge. I don't know if they can protect you from Riptide's ability, but that could be useful to note as well. Let me actually look up how they read. February. So it says prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to your hero this turn. Yeah, so they can actually also play around Riptide's ability. Interesting. That could be, yeah, that could actually come up in a situation like this where both decks definitely look to be tuned pretty aggressive. It could kind of be a race to those low life totals really quickly and then become a grindy match. And in a grindy match, Riptide loves to trigger those traps. But if Seekers gives a way to play around that, that could be big. I've been talking so long that I haven't breathed through my nose, and now it feels stuffy. Apologies. I try to get some other people to cast with me, but it is an odd night for a lot of the FaB community. A lot of my friends are already in Chicago, going up to the Realm Games tournament. I wish I could go, but plane tickets just didn't quite work out for me. And on top of that, I've got something else happening tomorrow anyway in New York City. I'm going to be casting the Iron Song Society's draft party to celebrate the release of Outsiders. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. So New York City, definitely an easier ask since I live in upstate New York than going all the way to Chicago these days. Even though I feel like I should just have easy access to Chicago. Lived in Michigan so long. So shout out to everyone in Chicago, though. That's going to be an amazing event. I can't wait to watch the coverage. But that's where a lot of people were. On their way driving to Chicago, I tried to ask a bunch of buddies, hey, you want to cast this with me? And got turned down like 5 times. Okay, so to kick us off here, Jess comes in with a looking for scrap. Interesting that this card made the cut in his deck, so he must have probably like 1, maybe like blue feisty locals, right? I think that's the only way for Ranger to be able to trigger look for scrap is blue feisty locals specifically. Otherwise, there is no 1 cost attack that can end up in your graveyard. Because funny enough, if you throw a dagger, like if you hurl a dagger or flick knives a dagger, that actually counts for looking for scrap. Looking for scrap can target that dagger and banish it, which is, I mean, that's free. That's a great interaction. That dagger does nothing in your graveyard anyway. It's not like it goes back to your inventory or anything when broken. So we just see look for scrap used as a way to load infecting shot and go ahead and get it ready with that aim counter on it. Infecting shot looking to be a 1 for 6 with an on hit next turn, guaranteed. Guaranteed. Dell wishing he had Riptide's ability there to be able to load Virulent Touch and play aggro. I mean, imagine that. Spider's Bite, Ravenous Rabble, load Virulent, play Virulent. Not a real play line, but Gosh, would it be nice? So with that whole turn just converted into 1 damage. That was Dell going second. This is the curse that afflicted Vera last round, where her first turn going second was just a do nothing turn. And Dell's was actually even worse. It was just 1 damage. Vera's was at least 2. And now we've got that clean 12 coming through on this infecting shot. 12 freaking damage. That is no joke. 12 likely goes over what your average hand in this format can ever block. In this format, you tend to look at probably having like 2 blocks per hand, right? So maybe the equipment bails out Dell here. But if he opts to equipment block, that just trashes his ability to ever play around Widowmakers. Widowmaker, huge card. And we know that I actually do we know? I think we know. I think we know that Jess has at least 1 red in his deck because he played it in that first game. But it's a card that you'll run in any color. It's just great. So it's likely that there's probably even like a yellow or a blue in the Riptide list as well. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Massive trade. Really paying off here though, because Dell opted to keep these Rabbles and in a double Rabble hand. There was a lot of potential for that to just fall completely flat. I mean, geez, that Rabble could have shown blue. And then what does the double Rabble turn do for you? Nothing. You just don't play that hand. That is not the good rate you want. But now he gets to flip it. 2 red Rabbles guaranteed to come in for 4 each. Very, very strong play. Very strong. Peace of Mind with the yellow pitch. Not going to do anything for the Seeker's pieces. This is just going to trade 2 cards for block 4 plus Ponder, which, hey, that feels great. There are some awkward pieces stuck in Arsenal that other decks might not want to ever let happen. Like, let's say you load a, blue Scout the Periphery or something with Ponder. That would feel awful. At least Riptide could play it out and then play another card from hand, load an attack, and still make do. So I don't think there's any card that you actually hate to get off Ponder as Riptide specifically, unless you were running the Fabled because you opened it and sealed. And if so, congrats. You're already the winner. You're already the winner. And it's not like Ponder forces you to Arsenal, to be fair, so that wouldn't actually ever come up. And that Scout the Periphery. I didn't even notice that was in Dell's hand there. Really, really strong. He actually had the opportunity to just throw that whole hand because I think that last card is a stealth attack. So that could have been Rabble, Stealth Attack, Scout, Virulent for what, like 16 damage or something? Plus the Virulent Touch effect. Wow. What a turn. Out of both players, honestly. Out of both players. This is what I was saying. This might be a race just to those lower life thresholds really quickly because both these decks seem to have hit some really good reds. I mean, already, red Premeditate, I mean, it only comes in red, but red Come to Fight, the double red Ravenous Rabbles, the red Infecting Shot, red Virulent, red Scout. There's a lot of reds that are just getting slapped on the table. Players are just eating it as of now. Feels bad to have tough choices on a Virulent like this, right? This is where Peace of Mind could come up huge. I had a Peace of Mind in pre-release just blow out my opponent's beautifully set up Virulent Touch play, where I think I had a yellow Peace of Mind and a block 1 equipment, and I knew a Virulent was coming at some point, and I had that yellow Peace of Mind, 1 block equipment, boom, just completely turned the game around because my opponent had just been waiting so patiently with that play from Arsenal only card, Virulent Touch, trying to find the window where it really would punish me. And speaking of punishing, look at this spot. Look at all the damage leak there. Oh, okay, you know what? It was a blue. It was a blue stealth card. Makes sense then. Dell's just saying, I will trade this 1 card, not for 1 damage, but for 2 damage. And that just makes sense. That just makes sense. So trading that Blood Rot token right back over then to Jess. Just hoping to draw a blue. If he draws a blue, then that clears the Blood Rot. But it looks like he did not. What a trade. What a trade. Now Dell. All the room in the world to play this 4-card hand. Pretty aggro back into Jess here. It looks like it's pretty resource light though. Another red, maybe yellow virulent. I think it's yellow. Could be yellow. A wreck havoc, a yellow virulent. I think. Yep, there we go. It is yellow, and a red snake charmer thing, whatever it's called, like surprise attack, sneak attack. No, it's not sneak attack. Spring load. Spring load. There we go. I think this turn likely tries to if those are both reds, it probably feels pretty bad to pitch double red for Wreck Havoc. But I think you have enough room to maybe do it. Because if all you do is sedate, well, no, sedate's a decent on hit in and of itself, right? Because inertia is pretty good into Riptide. So yeah, if the turn is just sedate into Spring Load, even though Spring Load doesn't get the buff, that's probably good enough. Just the sedate on hit is threatening. But I don't know what color that Spring Load is. I think it's a red. Oh, yo, yeah, there you go. Okay, Spring Load cost 1. I forgot about that. I thought it was free. Okay, yeah, beautiful play then. Well done, Dell. Yeah, I thought it was going to get into a bit of a tricky spot because Spring Load was free, but no, Feisty Locals is the free one. Spring Load cost 1. So yeah, that turn, that just random 4 cards off the top, did convert pretty well. If that red was a blue, there'd be one more damage coming through because the second Spider's Bite would have been paid for. But you really can't complain when off the top with no setup, you're able to push 10 damage. Not bad. Or I guess 9 damage. 9 damage. That is 2 cards expended from deck for 9 damage. Which in that fatigue by damage scenario that we talked about in round 1, very relevant stuff. Very relevant stuff. Also, of course, just demands answers. If Jess had just eaten all the damage that turn, there'd just be that much less room to worry about making choices later in the game with blocks. He's at least bought some life here. It's going to be a 3-card return. 3-card return. It honestly could still it could be 9. There is a world where it's like come to fight, flip up, arrow, 9 total. Not what we're looking at though. Just a freewheeling renegades. So this card is something that you really want to respect, right? Just go ahead and block it. Because any card you block with automatically gains +2 value. Even if it's just a base 2 block card, right? You're effectively blocking 4 because it procs the Freewheeling Renegades effect, which says if it's blocked with an action card, it gets -2. So yeah, you definitely want to do that. Don't get greedy about this kind of thing. I had an opponent at a pre-release. I threw a Freewheeling Renegades, and they just took it. I'm like, okay, you just took 6 damage, and that one card in hand that you kept turned into like a Spider's Bite. That's crazy. Like, you don't trade one card like that, you know? That every time should have just gone to the Freewheeling Renegades block. Because in that scenario, it would have blocked like 4 to 5 instead of just turned aggressive for 1 damage. I might have still lost that game, actually. Because I was on Katsu, and that deck was very bad. I feel like I actually still lost that game. So, don't listen to me. Yeah, across my 3 pre-releases, I played Azuri and won it. Azuri, won it, and then opened a pile that was really, really bad across the board. I probably should have gone Benji and just hoped that I won every die roll. But instead, I tried to go Katsu and just fatigue. And unfortunately, yeah, the deck was just not quite good enough to get there. I really just didn't have enough damage. I barely had any reds, which is why I wanted to go Benji. I just had no faith in winning die rolls. Because if you go first as Benji, amazing. You know, you probably leak like 3 damage arsenal. Super strong. But if you go second, I just felt like I was eternally behind. So probably my mistake though still. All right, we got a quick exchange there. Dell just blocked out. Giving Jess room. Not doing much here though. This is just a yellow humble. And Riptide is not Azuri. Not like you could really swap in anything on top of the humble, but actually, yeah, that there is no interaction in this format that could actually buff humble in this situation. So never mind. Never mind. But still, gotta answer it. It's 5 damage coming through. Risking to take away Arachne's hero text, which tends to be what lets Arachne push wide. In that hand, I actually don't think there is a stealth attack anyway, to be fair. It looks like it's just Ravenous plus some blues and Death Touch. So the Death Touch is going to take a turn to set up. That definitely can't be the play. So this hand might just be Spider's Bite into Ravenous into Arsenal Death Touch, and that's about it. Or this makes sense as well. Just get the full block value there, not waste HP for a Spider's Bite. Makes sense, makes sense. And then just Ravenous. Oh, it's a yellow Ravenous? Okay, yeah. So trading it for 1 damage on the Spider's Bite here kind of bluffs that there's something wider coming with that turn, as well as just saying if that hit a blue, then it was 1 damage anyway. So let's not waste the card in deck and just make it worth 1 right now. Right here, right now. And it still took a card. Another yellow Humble comes out, though. We see Riptide just slowing down. Doesn't quite have those buff hands that Jess had in that first game that really made the deck look scary. Jess just showing off. I think that's the 3rd yellow Humble. Actually found, excuse me. I found the yellow 2 cost to be pretty useful when playing Azuri because so many decks get grindy that if you pitched in a yellow at any point for like a Spider's Bite or for like a 2 cost in your first cycle, it was something that your opponents really stopped trying to play around as the game went on. Like, oh, well, we're both out of reds, so you don't have any swaps left. But then you can swap in a yellow. And that was just, that still brings through a ton of pain. Being able to swap in when you come in for like a yellow, dominate piddly little stealth attack, your opponent blocks 2. You swap in Humble, that cheats 3 plus hit effect. Whew, that stuff was scary. And that's it. That's the pass. No action point remaining after the Humble anyway. Now we've got Dell leading with a Look for Scrap. I absolutely love this card. I'm really trying to find a way to make it playable in Classic Constructed or even Blitz. My fun theory with this card is that it's really good in the Emperor. You can run this card with Vipox in the Emperor and banish Vipox, right? Get that out of there. Give this go again. And then follow up with like Flame Call Awakening. Get the Phoenix. Pitch the Phoenix CNC. Come in for a 14 damage turn off 4 cards. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Is it consistent though? No. Is Vipox even good? No. At least Vipox blocks 3. But having 1 cost in the Emperor is a little awkward anyway. It was just, I'm dreaming, all right. Blocking 2 on an Infectious Host. Low value card. Just used as fodder here. Into a high value card. Death Touch coming in for 6. Massive on hit effect. Death Touch. The amount of times that I didn't choose Blood Rot were overwhelming to me. I wasn't ready to have that choice presented of like actually valuing Frailty so highly. I thought every time Blood Rot just makes sense. The most damage, Blood Rot. But actually, saying Frailty in the right spot or saying Inertia in the right spot is way more disruptive into actually giving you a place in the game to draw a hand, give you the breathing room to have a hand that is actually going to push more damage than just the 2 that a Blood Rot would have given you. So I was very, very impressed with that card in testing, or not in testing, in practice. Now we've got a lot of high value cards though given to the block there. That's 3 cards to block the 1, and I think one of those was a red cut down to size, I believe. Really, really high value card. Those 2 for 6s are no joke. But this is another great play, just to be able to return a 1 card for damage. There's a lot of cards like these in the in this format. There's the Seek Horizon, there's Infectious Host, there's Virulent Touch, of course, although that has to come from Arsenal. They feel amazing to be able to just return 0 for 4. Ravenous Rabble in a way as well. They're not going to be as good as a Snatch. You know, Snatch is still the best 0 for 4. But it gets pretty close. Especially when damage scaling kind of falls off in this format so hard. The larger the hand, the less damage it tends to deal per card. To just be able to return 1 card 4 damage, very, very above rate. I think now we see, what is that, Razor's Edge and a Spike potentially? No way. That's too good. Oh, this poor Riptide, poor Jess. I don't think you can really play around the double pump. That's pump 6. That is pump 6 in hand. Oh no. Oh no. And damage dealt by Malign can't be prevented, so you can't even fall back on a Seeker's Play or a Brush Off or a Peace of Mind. It's just over, I think. There's no way. I mean, defense reactions can come in here, but that's not good enough. Defense reactions won't protect from all the damage here because this is already 5, dealing 2, and then the Razors on top is going to do it. I guess it depends if there's one more trap, right? If there's one more trap that could potentially trigger on this turn. Jess seems to be okay, well Jess is actually I mean, he's paying for effects that do nothing, I'm pretty sure. Because Malign says damage can't be prevented, right? Let me check that again. Malign. Damage that would be dealt by Malign can't be prevented. Yeah, so Seekers actually doesn't work blocking Malign that way. So I hope they catch that. Well, I mean, it's whatever. The games are for fun, right? The games are for fun. But still for learning moments. For learning moments. Because this does give Jess... Oh, okay. Hold up. Getting ahead of myself. I was going to say it gives Jess an opportunity to potentially kill Dell with a trap. But the Blood Rot Pox that comes through, not to mention the other attack that Dell was sitting on as well, is just going to wrap up the game. Okay, so Seekers be darned. That was still just a great closer out of nowhere. Great closer by Dell. That deck looked incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. He knew what he was doing. So many good reactions. So much pressure. So many just good red cards. And good red cards leads to other good red cards performing even better. When a Ravenous Rebel can reveal red, you can have 2 of them in the same hand, come in for 4/4, and whatever the rest of that turn was. Whew, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. All right, that was 3 rounds. That was 3 rounds. Let me message Chris because I wasn't quite sure the game plan. Great games. Congrats to Dell for me. Yeah, so I'm not sure what the plan is going forward. We're gonna wait for Chris to get back to me in a second here. What's the plan? One more or no? I expected to probably be around for like 2 hours, but in all honesty, those were pretty quick. All right. Well, let me try to swap to a face cam. This might tank, so give me a second. All right. It didn't work. No face cam, unfortunately. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. It was really cool to see some more Sealed Outsiders action. A day early, mind you. Because this set is hitting the shelves tomorrow for the global release. You can catch me streaming it at the Iron Song Society's draft release party tomorrow, which will be a lot of fun. But it was really cool to just kind of get extra reps in the field. So thank you to Chris. Thank you to FaB Unsealed to be able to jump out here and cast some games and see Dell just absolutely take it home and Vera open up that flick knives. Crazy stuff. I'm sure there was a boom going on when she opened that. So really, thanks for tuning in, everybody. It was a lot of fun. I'm Man Sant. You can catch me on my channel. Of course, tune in to more FaB Unsealed for box breaks, booms, and box breaks, box wars, boom. I messed it up. There you go. Bye-bye.